She was 7 years old, in second grade at Magnolia Avenue School in Dunn, excited to go on her first school field trip. The teacher announced the buddy system, so everyone went to find a partner. She partnered up with her new friend, the one who she thought had the prettiest smile. Holding hands, they prepared to leave the room and go on their first big adventure. But one of the adult chaperones caught her eye. The chaperone didn't say anything. The chaperone simply, subtly shook their head. No. That young girl didn't have to ask what the shake of the head referred to. At 7, somehow, she already knew that it was because she was white and her new friend was black. So she sadly dropped her new friend's hand and went to find another, one that might be considered more appropriate. How did she already know? More importantly, how long did it take that young girl to understand what really happened that day? How long? Well, I'll let you know later, because I am that 7-year-old child, and almost 45 years later, I'm still unlearning the racism of that moment. And I'm still trying to learn how persistent and how pervasive the sin of racism is today. I'm still learning how to recognize and confess my racial sins as an individual and as part of a culture that would make it crystal clear to a 7-year-old that skin color matters. I'm still learning that I am a part of a majority that has remained silent for far too long while people of color have suffered disproportionately in a country of abundant resources. I'm still learning how I have benefited simply because of the color of my skin. I'm still learning what it means to be anti-racist. I'm still learning. I'm still listening. And most importantly, I'm still confessing, trusting in the grace of God to convict me and to forgive me, but even more so to empower me to love God and all people more completely, so that my words and my actions are grounded in God's divine love. Because God created us, all of us, to love God and to love one another. Today is Trinity Sunday, and you might be thinking, so what? What does Trinity really matter, given that we're still in the midst of a pandemic and now dealing with all these racial protests across our country? But it does matter, because God as Trinity is not only about who God is, but it is also about who we are. Our first reading is from Genesis 1, that beautiful, poetic, powerful story of creation, culminating in the very good creation of all humankind. Genesis 1 tells of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit living in perfect relationship with one another, and then creating human beings in God's relational image to live in relationship with God, with one another, and with all God's creation. Then God said, let us make humanity in our image to resemble us. So God created humanity in God's own image, in the divine image. God created them, male and female. God created them. Trinity Sunday matters because it draws us back to the essence of who God is and who we are. Created in the image of a God who lives in perfect community, we are created to live in community with one another. All people, regardless of the color of their skin, are created in God's image. When any one of us forgets that, all are diminished. When any one of us fails to stand up for the dignity of the other, all of us are diminished. When we favor independence over empathy and care for the most vulnerable, all are diminished. Trinity Sunday matters because we need its message, especially now. The triune God is relationship, and it is in relationship with God, with one another, and creation that we most fully live into who we were created to be. John of Damascus in the late 7th century, early 8th century, used the Greek word perichoresis to describe the Trinity. The word is loosely translated as circle dance, to move around together, to dance together, many dancing as one. The image is of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in a circle, dancing in perfect step together, moving distinctly as three, moving uniquely as one. It's an open dance, and the triune God invites all of us to join in, to live who we were created to be, to dance in step with the God who is love and who welcomes all people into the dance of love with us. Some of the protests in the wake of George Floyd's death have been heart-wrenching to watch, but not all of them. Have you seen the ones where the protesters and the police danced together? From Newark, New Jersey, Carrollton, Georgia, to Lincoln, Nebraska, they danced. The Cupid Shuffle, an open dance where all were invited to join. Black, white, police, protesters. Did the dancing solve all the problems? Of course not. But for a moment, they were all in step together as one, setting aside their differences, sharing common ground. A moment, a glimpse of the divine image. Trinity Sunday matters especially now because it reminds us the essence of God is community, relationship. All of us, no matter what color, were created in that relational, communal image. Created to love one another, created to ensure all people thrive with justice and dignity, created to use our gifts for the good of all God's children, created in God's image. Trinity Sunday matters especially now because it reminds us of the pervasive, persistent sin of racism that prevents us from loving all God's children and that blinds us from seeing God's divine image in those who don't look like us. Bishop Michael Curry is the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church. You might recognize his name because he served Episcopal parishes in North Carolina and served as a bishop here once. Or you might recognize his name as the African-American preacher who rocked the sermon at the royal wedding of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Bishop Curry wrote this in the Washington Post last Sunday. Our nation's heart breaks right now because we have strayed far from the path of love, because love does not look like one man's knee on another man's neck, crushing the God-given life out of him. Love does not look like the harm being caused by some police and some protesters in our cities. Violence against any person is violence against a child of God, one created in God's image. And ultimately, that is violence against God, which is blasphemy. It is the denial of the God whose love is the root of genuine justice and true human dignity and equality. Love does not look like the silence and complicity of too many of us who wish more for tranquility than for justice. So what does love look like? Love looks like all of us, people of every race and religion and national origin and political affiliation, standing up and saying, enough. We can do better than this. We can be better than this. What does love look like? It is what Jesus of Nazareth taught us. It is the Good Samaritan, an outsider who spends his time and his money healing somebody he doesn't know or even like. Bishop Curry ended that column with this challenge. Now is the time for all of us to show in our words, our actions, and our lives what love really looks like. Now is the time. May that be our prayer and our challenge. May it be our prayer and our commitment to learn what love really is, to confess those places we've gotten love wrong, and then to share divine love in words and actions with every 7-year-old child and with every person we encounter. Because every person we encounter is another person created in God's divine image. In the name of our triune God, who is love. Amen.